Good evening, Sairam, and a warm welcome to all the participants who have joined us today. It is a very uh, wonderful day today, wonderful evening today. It takes a lot of joy to announce that we are starting the Gems of Bharat, a unique series. And true to its name, there are so many hidden, undiscovered gems in the landscape of Bharat, from north to south and east to west. Those who work silently, those who work behind the scenes, those who sweat out just to ensure that the lives of thousands of others, get better from day to day, so that the lives of thousands of others, hundreds, thousands, and lakhs of others is more comfortable, is more aspirational, is more independent, is more respectful, and imbued with dignity. This is a special series from Sai Dev Talks. Sai Dev Talks, as most of you would know, is a platform where the alumni of Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning and who are actively participating in the social and development sector. And so far, we have had talks only amongst those members from the alumni, but we've decided to explore further, discover greater personalities who, in fact, lend inspiration to others, common men like us, like you, like me, so that we are able to not just focus on our lives and our growth and our prosperity, but also have a vision that is more broad and that seeks to care for the welfare of a larger society. So, in the very first session of Gems of Bharat, it's indeed our privilege to have Mr. Vineet amongst all of us. To give a wonderful introduction to Vineet, it's my privilege to call upon my close friend, colleague, and a co-traveler in this journey of being useful to society and making the world a better place. I now call upon Lahri. I'll request her to please share a few words about our speaker for the day, Mr. Vineet.
Saram, everybody. Hello. Happy to introduce Vineet here. So Vineet is the founder and CEO of Atypical Advantage, India's largest livelihood platform for people with disabilities. He pursued his post graduation from IIM Bangalore and is a strong believer that a generation of compassion is the only way to make the world a better place. He's an avid trekker, marathoner, endurance cyclist, and a lifelong volunteer. His Ladakh marathon story was also showcased as a documentary titled Blind People Run Too, highlighting the abilities of people with disabilities. He has cycled over 5,000 kilometers in his tandem bike and dreams to cross the world on a saddle someday. His feature on Shark Tank India showcased the founder's pitch of Nazar or Nazariya, which was widely acclaimed for its role in mainstreaming inclusion across India. Thank you, Vineet, for being a part of today's conversation. Over to you.
Thanks. It's a joy, and thanks for inviting me.
So, Vineet, I have the privilege of hosting this session, and I have the privilege of asking you a few questions so that we can learn from your journey. Well, of course, all of us want to know how did your journey begin and how did it come to happen that you are now dedicated wholesome to the space of social and development sector, space of inclusion. How did it all begin and how did it come to this point?
Okay, so I'm from Jamshedpur. As such, me and my brother both are visually impaired, and a complaint came from the school that both of them cannot see the blackboard, and then we got to a doctor. Later in life, we figured out that we have this condition called retinitis pigmentosa, in which sight keeps on going down as age progresses. Uh, was very good in studies as such, and sometimes this condition we did not know the worst extent of this because the sight keeps on going down very slowly. So if you ask me, like, what's the noticeable change in a year, it's not very easy to predict. Nevertheless, I made technology my friend, started using screen readers, which is a text to speech software through which I do pretty much everything: operate a laptop, operate a smartphone, and so on. And then, with the grace of three teachers who taught me on how to crack the common aptitude test, uh, got admission into IIM Bangalore. And like my batchmates, the thought process was to become a CXO and more money. Uh, and that was again the thought process 10, 15 years down the line. And then joined a corporate, FMCG and retail. And there, in one of the retail spaces, I hired more than 500 plus people with disabilities. That was my first introduction to disability in some sense, and probably understanding the country and the challenges what people with disabilities face. Because as I say that, I still had a pretty much privileged life in some sense. I did not face any challenges which would a typical blind person might face, be it job, accessing schools, accessing books. One, obviously, because my parents could afford a computer or afford to do soft copy or even afford a reader for that basis. And so yeah, pretty working there 5 years in the corporate space, hiring 500 people with disabilities. And then I had also made a lot of stores accessible to people with disabilities, close to 300 plus stores with shopping assistants, accessible trial room, washroom. Launched something called Quiet Hour, which was for people on the autism spectrum. So light, sound, trolley movement was reduced, and 15,000 people on the spectrum shopped across 3 years. Though, just wanted to acknowledge that this was not my main project. I was hired at the CEO's office, and I was working on category management and last mile logistics. Quit everything like around COVID times. It probably was a wake up call for me, and I actually thought that there is no sustainable way or a systematic way to generate livelihood for people with disabilities. And one of my mentors told me that, look, Vineet, you are blind, you are from a good business school and a middle class family. If you don't try to solve this problem, no one else would. So it's not about you or me, but India will forever lose an opportunity to help people with disabilities at scale. And I thought that let me give it a shot. And again, here I really want to acknowledge the safety net which I had in place. uh, be it a good B school. Even if the venture doesn't work out for whatever reason, I could always go back to the corporate space, or even go back to my family in general. So there was a strong safety net in terms of there was nothing to lose for me. And obviously that gives a very different level of confidence. So that was how I probably started Atypical Advantage. To give you a very quick overview, Atypical Advantage, what it does is it's now we are having over 50,000 plus people with disability, over 500 plus performers, all are people with disabilities. Same way, 350 plus artists with disabilities. Pitch is very straightforward. Look at the talent, which is their portfolio, which is there on our platform. Everything is live, no fireballs. And then if you find them meritorious, give them a chance, be it for event, award function, corporate boardroom art, wall mural, and so on. And same way, we have over now 50,000 plus job seekers with disabilities on the platform. And we encourage companies to hire people with disabilities. Now we are working with over 450 plus large companies, and we have impacted over 5,000 people with disabilities so far. And last year we were adjudged as the best placement organization by the President of India itself. I think a rare distinction, where we also won the National Startup Award out of 1,600 plus social impact startups. So that is how the 5 year journey of Atypical is looking. And yeah, we have done a lot of difficult projects, be it getting people with disabilities in manufacturing, people on the autism spectrum in pet care. So yeah, I still think we have just scratched the surface for this, because we often downplay people with disabilities and have a sympathetic look. I think with technology, I'm very sure all of this is in our mind, and probably there would be a time where you don't require a platform like ours, because technically we are only here because of the inequality in education, physical infra, awareness, and so on. So yeah, we want to change all of that within our lifetime.
Meaning fantastic or amazing is just an understatement to the kind of achievements that you have just listed in the few minutes that you spoke to us now. I want to explore a lot more, but before that, I still want to go back to understand. Many people, right, for them, success is personal success. At best, a success family success is also celebrated as a personal success. But at what point in time did you decide to expand your realm of consciousness and say, it's not about me getting better or me navigating or me finding success, but also uh, realizing success in the success of others. And therefore, see, you did a great job, right? In 5 years, 500 people. Uh, you could have very easily said, I'm doing enough. But when did that enough seem too little, and then you decided to amplify it? What was there a defining moment? Was there a moment where you had to question yourself? Was there a struggle, or it was just a natural flow, like how the water just merges into the sea?
So the first thing is there are certain things which are meant to be. If you look at my work and my disability and some of the unique situations in which I am, I perhaps think that I would be one of the best individuals in this country to solve exactly this problem of disability inclusion. I might not be the best in other problem statements. That was one. Second was the influence of my mentor, who told me, and he started Give India in 2000, uh, as such. And so that was another inflection point for me. And the third, had been to Vipassana, as such. But again, for me, see, personally, believe that some of the brightest minds of a country should actually solve some of the toughest problems for us as a nation. I believe that human beings real achievement, at least for our nation, is not to figure out how to get groceries from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. Actually, the real problem solving should happen at a social level, which, because social problems are more complex than business problems. I can actually put an Excel sheet and explain how to increase revenue, but if you tell, let's say, how to solve for crime or malnutrition or rapes in this country, it's way tricky and complex to solve that issue. And if the brightest minds try to figure out and waste their energies in figuring out how to get groceries in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I think it's a waste of their talent in general. And again, I don't generalize this for every bright person in our country, but at least I believe that people who have are well off in some basic food, shelter, and clothing, they should take the risk. If they will not take the risk to solve our nation's problem, no one else would, right? Like, we can't expect someone who has no safety net and are struggling, let's say, for basic food, shelter, clothing. By, again, grace of the divine, I had all of this, and I would not be worried about that. So if I don't take the plunge, despite so many of these things in my, probably in the in a net positive way, like going into a good B school, and then working 5 years in the corporate space, and then venturing into the social space with some safety net. And so that is what I think. Everyone has some unique gifts as individuals. The idea is to see what gift we can give to the society. And again, this global certain uncertainty is there, right? Like, so many of these macro factors are there. We have no option other than to feel optimistic and positive and leave this world in a better state than we arrived. Probably it's a moral responsibility. No one has any obligation to do this, but people who align with this thought process should definitely take the plunge. What worse can happen, right? So at least these were my thoughts at that point.
So phenomenal, right? What I did catch on to is the fact that you mentioned Vipassana, and you mentioned the mentor, and you mentioned the context. So which means there is an inner conviction that got anchored in those silent moments of Vipassana. There was a certain directional inspiration that you got externally from your mentor in the form of a guru, if I can use the word from an Indian cultural perspective, and you were very aware as an individual of who you were and what you could do. So that's phenomenal. Which also I just want to remind myself and the audience who is listening, the true strength lies within, and it's not necessarily defined by what we have or what we can accumulate or what we are capable of, but it is the potential within. Fantastic. I want to reflect on another dimension here. Uh, let's say, okay, right, a child is born into a family and spends couple of years, first 3 to 4 years within the boundaries of the home. The very first societal institution into which a child walks into is a school setting, and then and then by design it spends over the next 12, 15, 16 years in the environs of campuses, Montessori to primary to high school, and then we get a sense of the diversity in society. We call it diversity, but I guess only later in life we realize that there is so much of homogeneity. So my question is, to ensure that every new generation understands the true diversity, are our educational institutions, particularly in our country, you may want to you may want to do a comparison with other countries or with your own lived experience or the real stories that you have seen. Where do we stand in our journey towards inclusivity in education? Is there policy gap? Is there infrastructure gap? Is there mindset gap? A little bit about that, please.
Yeah. So I think a very, very critical question. Before we before I answer this, just want to tell you that a lot of people, even who might be listening, or in general, right? If you want to escape India's problem, go to a gated society. You'll not be able to see any problem in our country. A very and a very homogeneous group. And I've seen, especially in schools, right? Like, if you might not have exposure to meeting opposite gender, you might not have an exposure to meeting someone from the south, someone from a disability, as such. So school typically nowadays has become a very homogeneous space, right? Like, have certain income level becomes a barrier for entering a particular school and so on. Imagine all of this for a person with disability. Imagine you are born 100% like blind. First 3 years, I'm very sure the parents would have this acceptance as a philosophy. They might blame the mother for this and so on. And once the person grows up at 3 years old, the school, a regular school, a mainstream school, would deny him admissions. Though the new education policy, which is a very progressive law, does clearly say that that's discrimination, but it happens very openly across schools. And the other thing is, in the same school would not have physical infrastructure access. If you are a wheelchair user, you might not even know how to talk to a deaf person. And these are, like, big challenges, be it mindset, be it physical infrastructure, or and at that point a child would feel that, hey, there's something wrong with them because they are not able to access so many of these things. Usually the parent might facilitate them in a blind school or a special school. I think first, inclusion can only happen in a truest sense if we mainstream everything, which is everybody has the same access to education, irrespective of caste, creed, gender, disability, income, and so on, as such. So that's the basic premise where probably the challenge lies. And again, schools again are very homogeneous. Diversity is probably not there in terms of thinking, or probably we are just mixing up with one kind of people in general. And that is the trend which I see now, which probably when I was growing up, I actually was able to meet different kind of people and so on. But now schools have actually become a business in a lot of aspects, which needs to be corrected. And here again, I want to tell the listeners that any blind person, deaf person, or person with locomotor disability can study with you guys in regular schools. I went into IIM Bangalore. There was no special provision or a special classroom for me. I was studying with the other bright people from the country across different nationalities, states, caste, creed, religion, and so forth. So if I can study there, I'm very sure anybody can also study in a school. It's just that we need to get the process right. Now let's say the child becomes an adult, which is 18 years, 19 years old, and he tries to find an opportunity by probably battling physical infrastructure barriers, mindset, attitudinal barriers, educational inequality, and so on. First of all, obviously, the levels of them might be slightly lower because of this inequality, but nevertheless, even if everything goes well, when that candidate enters the job market, the companies would discriminate, right? Like openly discriminate, saying that, we get companies who tell, give us a less disabled person. They want people with disabilities probably for the token hiring, but they want a less disabled person who just barely manages the quota, which is 40% people with disabilities, to get a disability certificate in India. And imagine the struggles, adversities which majority of people with disabilities would go through. And private jobs have no quota, nothing in general, and we'll take things about merit and all that stuff. No physical infrastructure, no digital accessibility for users, and then again you start having your job portal might not be accessible. Actually, that is why we started Atypical Advantage. Yeah, so this is like, a lot of these problems are there. We are trying to address some of this. Like for example, we have launched something called Atypical Academy, where we are upskilling people with disabilities into mainstream things like English, advanced Excel for blind people, UI UX course for people on the autism spectrum, basic employability, communication skills, ITI technical training in electronics, mechanics, and so on. So that is what we are trying to do, but I think the problem is still massive, and it's just the beginning. Now I think you asked a very important question on your second part, that is India behind in some of this versus other countries. Here I would say that the willpower of Indians are way far better. Last year I traveled to Japan and Singapore, and I could tell just by looking at it, they were way ahead in terms of physical infrastructure. But when it comes to people with disabilities at the top levels or mid-level positions, there was a quota for people with disabilities, but most of the people with disabilities, or 99% of the people with disabilities, were there in low level, unskilled kind of a job. While if you look at India, you'll find substantial number of people with disabilities at a mid level or even a senior level positions, who might be blind, or a person on a wheelchair, or a person who is deaf, and so forth, which is actually great for like a country like India. And West needs to learn from, some of these role models in India, who have, like, purely because of their hard work and spirit, have risen through the ranks and are doing fabulous work, which you'll not find examples in Japan and Singapore. In fact, if you look at our impact and so many of the other organizations in the social sector working in disabilities impact, it's way ahead than the Western nations or the Asian nations. What these nations are ahead, one is the strict implementation of the legal framework. Like for example, we have a Right to Persons with Disabilities Act in India, but the problem in India is the law is strong, but the follow up or the implementation of that law is very weak. While for a nation like Singapore and Japan, you'll actually find the law enforcement to be very strict. Similarly, amazing physical infrastructure for all users, senior citizens, people with disabilities, as such, which probably again India has a massive issue. Third, again, digital accessibility. Again, West is way ahead, but I would say Indians' sheer willpower to fight all adversities, and including Indians with disabilities, is way ahead of the Western nations. So yeah.
Yeah, so that last bit did really inspire, but at the same time, I think it inspired because yes, we have nerves of steel, and that kind of a spirit to fight against all odds and still come out successful. But what we do see is these as exceptions. right? For example, if I visit many of these centers where children for autism or special schools for children with visual impairment or centers of learning for children with hearing impairment, you see there is a prefix called center for learning for children, children with, and I see children with autism, and I do not know what happens after 16, 18. The numbers are not visible in the society. For example, right, a bad footpath would just mean that the elders are not going to step out of their house. So, and society begins to see less and less. Up to age of 12, 14, we see many, but I think the system is clearly excluding, and that must be excruciating for those who are trying to navigate this space. So I want to particularly ask about the transition today. If I need employment in higher levels and not just lower levels, I need to get higher qualifications and higher skills, which comes at more effort and more cost, and therefore these space of skilling, higher education, research opportunities, uh, how open is it? Is it that the primary and higher education, as far as inclusion and diversity, is doing better, and higher education is lagging far behind? Uh, can we hear something from you on this point?
Sure. So, if you look at the higher education itself, like let's look at the premier IIT exams, like the joint entrance exams, as a anecdote. 16 lakh people give that exam for, I think, 15,000, 16,000 JE seats. Imagine there is a 5% reservation for people with disabilities. Despite the reservation, and you look at all the reservations in the country, there would be more people fighting for these seats. But for people with disabilities, despite the reservation, 50 to 70% of the seats in most colleges in our country, despite the reservation, goes vacant for them, and technically then it goes to other reserved categories, which technically shows you that the problem, because 90% of people with disabilities don't go to schools itself. And and then we are probably, when it comes to the job market, only 5 to 10% of that overall pool would even graduate as such. So that's some numbers there. Now again, how we can probably look at is improve this thing with law in our hand, like the new education policy and so on. And again, I also think that certain we need to figure out the right roles for people with disabilities where they can excel. uh, uh, if you can, Larry, if you can just share our manufacturing work in general. So, like, we got people with disabilities, hearing disabilities, to work in some of the largest manufacturing companies in India. For example, the defense vehicles, which would be which Tata Motors is doing, is done by people with hearing disabilities. We are talking about semiconductors and chips. There's a company called Micron, which was our first investment in India. There, people with hearing disabilities are actually making chips for your smartphone as technical associates. Again, people with disabilities are doing FMCG products, and these are manufacturing jobs which are more sustainable over a longer time frame. And this was not there in the country, and we just started, and we thought that this is a great opportunity for people with hearing disabilities to learn technical skills, learn how to operate machines, and then build a career out of it. We'll be touching close to 15 manufacturing plants going forward. Aim is to get that to 100 very soon. And a lot of people with hearing disabilities are working. You mentioned about autism. For example, we are working with a pet care company, and where people on the autism spectrum are taking care of pets in a pet boarding firm. And they love the work, the company loves the work, efficiency is good, parents are happy, and they are earning money out of it. So same way for like higher paying jobs, blind people, we are getting them placed in finance at 25 lakh, 30 lakh CTC uh, in general. And I know, like, ourselves need to do a lot of work here, but I think it's just starting. And I think because in India, if you don't work at scale, nothing, like even a number of 1 lakh people with disabilities getting impacted is very small, considering we have 70 million people with disabilities in our country, as such. So you can imagine, and we need to do much work, and again be smart about selecting some of these roles and playing to the strength of a person. For example, I can't win a shooting competition because it's highly visual. I would probably choose my battles and figure out the roles. And so that is what Atypical Advantage is trying to do, figuring out the right roles for the right disability type where efficiency is not compromised. And again, working with the current realities in mind. And then also preparing people like in education through Atypical Academy, which is, getting them to work, crack JE exam with accessible material or CUET exams, and again short-term courses like sort of a Coursera for the disability sector. So yeah, that's what we are doing, and I think a lot of work needs to be done here.
So I'm very curious to understand. You showed us the great examples of folks working with Tata, with Nestle, with the semiconductor. I think all the sunrise industries that are getting the mention in the budget. You have you have put in a lot of effort, you and your team, and a typical advantage to ensure that the people with disabilities do have an opportunity in India's growth story. But I'm sure that has not come easy. I'm just wanting to know what are the greatest fears or myths or lack of understanding that potential recruiters have, even if they had the right intention, but probably the approach to decision making, which kinds of that doesn't make up their processes and systems open to employ persons with disability. How difficult it is, and how long do these conversations take to help a company open up and uh, see benefit and have a sense of equitable access to persons with disability in their shop floor and management offices?
So if you come to manufacturing, you'll not believe us. We have chased these companies for more than a year to get even the first person with disability being hired, even if the intentions are there, because a lot of the management, at least at the top level, would fear safety. What if something happens? What if something goes wrong? Trust me, the probability of going wrong by a person with disability and a non-disabled people might largely be equal. It's just that the mental fear is there in general, and again that could be just one reason or not to hire people with disability, blaming on safety protocols. By the way, when you make your plant safe and accessible, trust me, we have seen like so many of these examples which we have covered. The plant has become safe for non-disabled people. Installing a visual alarm or in having ramps, imagine, helps everybody at the plant, right? Not only people with disabilities. And that is again one fear, which is safety. The second is again digital infra and physical accessibility. They'll probably, a lot of companies might not follow the laws itself, so they can't hire a blind person or a person on a wheelchair if the premises itself is not accessible. So even if you have the intent, you might not be able to hire them. And again, here, just want to add this as a caveat: when people with disabilities were asking for work from home opportunities before COVID hit, companies told that it is not possible. But imagine post COVID, now work from home has become a new reality, and this was possible, right? Companies never wanted to give it to people with disabilities, and now it's becoming very acceptable to work from home. So I think that's again another bias. But I think the bigger barrier would be awareness in general, and fears about their productivity, that they might work less or they might create more problems. So we have seen a lot of these kind of scenarios play out only because of the homogeneity in their approach. They might have never interacted with people with disabilities and would have their own biases towards them. So I always tell everybody the best way to understand disability is not like, go and meet people with disabilities. I think lack of exposure creates the greatest divide in our society, and that needs to change.
So that takes up a lot of the conversation, I guess, from sensitizing the potential hirers to get an understanding of people with disability, understanding of the disability to not be a disability, but actually be an ability to foster a greater or faster means to achieve the same goals of the shop floor or the production house or the initiatives of the organization. So this removing the biases and dispelling the myths. So those are the conversations you have a lot with these people.
Exactly. So we actually talk about productivity, talk about safety, uh, have some meet and greet sessions, meet and greet for their with their families and so on, and show them how people with disabilities can work as efficiently as anybody else. So that is, how we have been able to convince so many companies to hire people with disabilities. And again, we also have the events, where singers and artwork portfolio is there. So it's again, another way to convince a company to hire people with disabilities. And here, see, I don't want to even have this analogy to tell you that people with disabilities are better or worse or good and all that, right? For example, women justifying that they are better than men? No, right? Like women can drive, women can do finance, women can now become a CXO and so on, right? And if you look at 20, 30 years down the line, there was not even female washrooms in India's top engineering colleges. I'm talking about 80s and 90s, where there were no female washrooms because people thought that females will never enter engineering and maths and cannot do finance and can't drive. And some of the largest Indian banks, we have women as CXOs, and all of these myths have been busted. And so I don't want to quote research papers to say that, hey, people with disabilities are better. Why should we even justify that piece, right?
Mm. Another thing that I wanted to ask is, right now you have a couple of success stories. So each subsequent opening of another sector or another company or another domain becomes probably a tad easier because you have stories to show. But is there a moment when you of recollection about your first breakthrough of in this getting people with disabilities uh, accessibility for jobs? Do you have any story to recollect and anything to share from that memory?
Sure, sure. So, in fact, we create a lot of FOMO out of companies. Like for example, now the entire FMCG sector works with us. Like we had Nestle as one of our first clients in FMCG, and now like we have Nivea, PNG, Godrej, Reckitt, and all of these large brands who have worked with us. Just by looking at one example, same for FMCG. Now we are talking to Tata Motors, Maruti, a lot of suppliers of these companies, Toyota, and so on. Same way for EV semiconductors. So I would say our initial days when we had nothing to show, right, as a portfolio, no proof of work. Um, and I remember I was talking to a very large CXO, and he said that, well, people with disabilities might not be able to do this work. And I remember I told him that, look, boss, I myself am blind. I'm talking to you. And if I am able to do this in front of you, what makes you believe they'll not be able to do this? And you can't logically counter that argument, at least at that point. So it was trust of faith. Same way on art and events. I think, see, the portfolio was there. So it was not like I had nothing to showcase as their portfolio. So typically, how our journey with companies work is, we'll initially start pitching them events, which is like, hey, you are having, let's say, town hall for your Women's Day, which is coming up. Why don't you hire a woman singer with disability? And which is easier for them to start, instead of, if my pitch is, hey, why don't you hire people with disabilities? They might not do that at the first go. But if you tell them, like, easier one, which is hiring a singer with disability, they might say, hey, we are anyways having an event, let's try a singer with disability. And because the portfolio is slightly easier to showcase them, and after, let's say, the performance of a singer with disability is great in their event, I will just go and pitch that, hey, you loved the performance of this singer, right? Why don't you even hire people with disabilities? So that's our second conversation, and then we take on the journey. So that is how at least we do our sales or conversion, whatever you call it.
Well, I think the secret to forming relationships is through heart, and whether it is marriage or job, you seem to strike the right chord in the beginning by venturing through the space of art. Right, fantastic. We have a couple of people who are live on this call, and the privilege of being live on this session is to be able to ask questions directly to you, Vineet. So I'm going to open up this space, and if there are any questions from the participants, they can take a moment to unmute themselves and ask. Anybody wants to go first and have a question directly for Vineet? It's a great privilege for all of us to be able to interact with him. Yes, Aryadev. Yeah. Please go ahead. Thank you for being ready with your question there. Please go ahead, Aryadev.
Hi, Vineet. Really inspirational work. I just want to share an observation and then also ask a
Maybe you
question.
can just add a line or two about your background so that it's easy for Vineet to get the context of your question as well.
Sure. I work for Cipla Foundation. It's a pharma company. So I'm part of the CSR team. So like I'm based in Goa. This is the largest manufacturing base for us. So here we work with one NGO called Setu, wherein we train all the Anganwadi teachers to on various aspects of disability and try to identify at the very initial stage, and then link them with UDID scheme so that they get uh, the scholarship and support from the government side. So, giving this context, that was my what I wanted to share. Then the follow up question was so recently, like in Goa, they celebrate Purple Festival.
Mm.
I think you'll be aware. So
Yeah,
there,
I'm
so
based out
here,
of Goa, just FYI. Yeah,
oh, we should meet up sometime.
yeah,
So, uh, during that Purple Festival, no, like even government was keen to push uh, the industries to employ people with disability and mental health and all that. So we did have a session with Niman's team. They were pitching how they're working in Karnataka and all that. But then again, has the question which you yourself highlighted, companies are little pessimistic. What if something happens? At the end, the company should not be held liable. So the response given was from the Nimans and the government side was not very convincing. So things did not go further. So how, like from legality point of view and also from your experience, what is the probability of they adjusting to a normal work scenario? And also the other way, like what steps can companies can take to create a environment where it's a equal playing field for both the parties?
okay. So just let me first of all see from a safety point of view, it's not like you don't need to do something extraordinary. By the way, pharma is the most compliant because of the US FDA norms. So pharma largely doesn't require to do any kind of adjustment. We have seen most pharma companies having visual alarms in place. What typically we have is like let's say an ATM card sized thing called pagers, so that in case of emergency it vibrates on their pocket. So it's like just a credit card which is given to every candidate from a safety point of view, or let's say a watch which vibrates. So there are these different kind of additional safety premise things which is there, but they work with the regular workforce. In fact, see they like we have an entire line where they are manufacturing in the engine assembly people with disabilities. And coming to pharma, two of your competitors were already starting to work in visual inspection. In fact, imagine deaf people's accuracy for this key role of visual inspection might be even higher than non-disabled people. So and safety is pretty basic, like for example having man machine movement, lot of charts, visual charts. Uniform needs to be modified so that you identify a person with disability. We do personal emergency evacuation plan. So a lot of these things are there, but it's nothing which is extraordinary or something which I'm talking like. For example, visual alarms are part of safety mechanism of every company. You as part of like you don't, this is nothing extra what I mean. So most of these processes are already there. What we are only urging companies to hire, like get the basics right, which is as per the law. Like having a visual alarm is a legal guideline in the Factories Act, which if companies don't follow, then there is a serious problem with those companies. So, and we have designed even for global companies from a safety point of view. So I think we can share you those things, but those are not like, it's not very difficult. And again, we are working with a lot of things in the education space, adopting deaf schools, training them in English and so on. So I don't know if I've 100% answered your question, but I can even do it offline.
The second bit which I asked, like I would say it's relatively easier to do it one off, but then to bringing a culture where both of them coexist and not having discrimination. So, what has been your experience with that?
So, see, we do a family visit, we design the policy itself and handhold the company, design the policy, design the SOP of the company, and then exit the plant. So, we'll work, let's say, a 3 4 month like a turnkey firm, do all of this, including policy changes, productivity, safety, and then exit. So, that is how we work with most of the companies in the manufacturing space. Uh, and it has been like attrition is close to zero, productivity is higher, but obviously the base is smaller, so not good to compare. It's not apples to apples comparison.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Arya, for your question, and of course, thanks, Vinny. Mr. Sheshnath, you have raised your hand. Would you like to ask any question to the speaker? Please go ahead. You can unmute and ask. Okay, while Sheshnath is trying to figure out how to unmute, there is one question here. Somebody who has been in the space of special education, mainly towards vocational skills, and trying to get more and more of their students, of course, people with disabilities, into the job space. I think as an educator, she mentioned this question during the registration, saying that one area where she would like to know is soft skills is some area, while technical skills people with disability do pick up, but the soft skills become a challenging area. So, what could be the top three top skills? Her question is precise, that one should focus on to make persons with disability be able to integrate themselves at an interpersonal level in the work environment.
Yeah, so I think a great question. So see, there are soft skill coaches, and as per different disabilities. Like for example, for deaf people, what we are trying to do is, and see, the answer would also vary on the type of disability. So, for example, for deaf people, we are training them in English and boosting their English literacy skills so that they are able to build confidence in the workplace with written English support. Coming to, let's say, people on the autism spectrum, and again we don't talk about people like, we again distinguish between low functioning and high functioning, which I personally don't like. So here, probably for people on the spectrum, we need to create micro entrepreneurship. For example, we are doing, like, let's say, a UI UX, graphic designing, and freelancing kind of assignments. Then we are also helping all the bakers on the autism spectrum. Uh, Recently, again, pet boarding we again did for people on the spectrum, where we had a special educator and like a job coach who was there for the entire 6 month duration for handholding support and so on. So yeah, the answer would vary, and there are huge problems, and again, this is a big gap. Like, imagine a person from a rural area suddenly coming to a metro. Their English might not be great, and their soft skills would be low, and their self esteem would be low. So what we try to do is have mentorship, connect with other people with disabilities, same background, and so on, just to improve the confidence in them. Having said, I think still a lot needs to be done, and also need to be done by understanding different kind of disability types.
So it seems that you're putting effort to open doors of one sector after the other, and manufacturing is a space where I think you have had success. FMCG is a space you have had success, and you're working on getting which new sector to open their door. Somebody who has probably been more close than others. Which is the next nut you're trying to crack?
So I think the care industry, to be specific, for example, we did like, imagine if we do a poll here, and would you like your child who might be non-disabled to be taken care by a person with Down syndrome? Every parent said no. The school said that non-disabled people mishandle babies. People with Down syndrome might, take it to a different level. No one trusted us. Luckily, we figured out one corporate crash who gave us this opportunity. And the same parents who said no to having a person with Down syndrome taking care of the babies, the same parents were calling the school and telling that, why is this girl absent? Uh, so I feel that a lot of people on the spectrum and neurodiverse people have, like, want to demonstrate care, but they have not got the right channel. It will be slightly slower than our other work, but I personally think logically it makes a lot of sense. There are Western examples of people with Down syndrome in geriatric care in Israel, in Australia. So the idea is to bring that to India and say that, a person who expects love from them, here are people with disabilities who are also capable of giving love to someone else. In fact, if we have time, we can just play that video pet boarding one so that people understand it. Larry, would you like to just play that? So yeah, like,
Sure.
Yes,
that's
Larry, that would
one.
be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And just play the Tata Motors also, the way people with disabilities are making. Both videos you can play simultaneously, one after the other.
My daughter Reva is extremely fond of animals. She has, since she was very young, said she wants to be a vet or work with animals in some way or the other. And I have spent many days and months and years thinking, okay, how can this converge? How can her love for animals actually converge into something that is more constructive, career oriented, and gives her an opportunity to grow as well? Pushku seemed to be sort of the perfect match for Reva's love for animals.
Introducing Possibilities, an inclusive pet care training and internship program for neurodiverse individuals.
Pushku is type of dog boarding place for dogs to play with and take care of it.
Introducing Reva and Priya. Reva and Priya are neurodiverse individuals, and when Puchku saw their love for dogs, there was no hesitation in giving them a chance. Jobs they now can't stop talking about.
Hi Priya. What is it that you like about Puchku?
All the dogs.
Hi, this is Ramesh. I'm the father of Priya. Puchku for us has been really godsend. In the last a few months when Priya has been going to Puchku.
Her energy levels are higher. She's more excited.
I'm so excited. I keep jumping up and down.
You keep talking about all the dogs you play with,
Yeah, I
and
have to
then
get excited for Mondays.
What all have you learned at Puchku, Reva?
Joe told me about animals like happy, sad, to be calm, and you have to be gentle with dogs, and dog be gentle to you back.
Every day when she comes home, she feels that she's done something good, she's learned something new. I think what Puchku has done is sort of built this beautiful bridge between a person's interest and giving that person an opportunity to grow and explore that interest and take it further and look at the possibility of having a career in pet care. It's a very empathetic place. And just the fact that somebody is willing to jump out of bed, a young teenager is willing to jump out of bed and go to work, speaks a lot about the place itself.
It's a deep sense of commitment and ownership which she has developed, so much so that if we plan a holiday, she always comes back and says, no, I can't take a holiday if it is a Puchku day. It's been amazing. Thank you very much for this wonderful experience Priya is going through.
You can just play the other one. Yeah, just some of the videos. We have so many videos which we can play, but yeah, in the interest of time, just thought we'll play these two.
Yeah, I think the participants are having a hair-raising moment, and they're so glad that such initiatives are being taken. But I'm going to ask a hard question now, Vineet, and please pardon me for that. And that question is like, right, there are three broad elements in society. One is Samaj, society. Next is Sarkar, the government. And third is Bazaar, which is the private party. And it looks like the Samaj itself is trying to solve its own problems, right? The NGO, the not-for-profit. What is the role of Sarkar? What are your expectations? Are they even moving the needle a bit? What's been your journey? While you can solve one problem at a time at a Samaj level as a not-for-profit, as a couple of NGOs, as a network, as a consortium, but for lasting change, does it lies in the hand of the mentality of society, or is it the carrot, is it the stick, or is it the wave of heart change and mental or inner transformation?
So, see, I personally think, from a society point of view, I'm very sure, you'll find enough examples of great people, organizations, both non-profit, for-profit, even the corporate space probably, trying to do its bit through CSR or even in general, like, so that's there as such. And obviously market again is also trying to do like the entire diversity and inclusion piece, which India embraced and probably did better than the US. I think that's pretty great as an example. But what all these three need to converge to solve the educational inequality for people with disabilities. Unless you do that, for example, I'll not name the state. Imagine a deaf person after standard 10 is not even taught language and taught fine arts in a government school. Another state as a policy, after standard 8 in all their schools, they don't teach a person with disability maths, and they are shifted compulsory to arithmetic. And these could be like millions of kids across different government schools. And so and then again a lot of government schools would be there where you'll not find sign language interpreters or even teachers who know screen readers, while the fact is with these mainstream things they can actually be part of the society like anybody else. So a lot of work needs to be done there, so that integration needs to be happen in well for people with disabilities. We always look for quick results, like and here I also blame the corporates, where a lot of CSR programs would expect you to do results or miracles in 1 year. See, if anybody with or without disabilities, fundamental education has a challenge. You'll not be able to do much in a 3-month, 6-month time frame and get them a job beyond a delivery worker. These needs to be solved at a way earlier level, could be like, let's say, a 2-year technical education training or building foundational literacy in STEM in early ages, because the brain plasticity is pretty good when you are a child. It happens with everybody, right? When you are 40 years old, you might not learn a musical instrument. It might be easier for you to learn the same musical instrument when you were a child, just purely because of brain plasticity. So that is where again things need to change for.
Yeah, thanks, Vineet. Well, I have been pushing you to tell me the difficult situation, but in every scenario you still seem to see a positive angle, and that comes out so beautifully in the name: atypical advantage, possibilities. So who is the name creator of all these initiatives, your organization, your theming, your branding? It is superb. You ooze, you radiate positivity. Uh, it is
So
fantastic.
you have, yeah. So like you have one of the team members, Lahari, who is here. Like she, and in fact, did all the manufacturing work. The team has a very strong marketing piece. For example, the first 3 years, Atypical Advantage never even applied for any awards because I personally had that philosophy that award creates an ego. So if you look at my past interviews, the first 3 years, I would have always mentioned the same thing. And like for doing such great work, why do you even need an award, right? Like you get an opportunity to do such great work, that itself is the biggest award reward in itself. But after 2 3 years, what we realize is that we need to amplify our work, and whatever needs to be done to amplify that work and again build more credibility. That is why we started applying for award. But our philosophy has been very clear. Even like till now, I tell my team, like we get so many thanks from the community, right? Like getting them a job, getting them gig work, getting them financial independence and all that. And I tell my team every time that we are not doing a favor on them. And it's just that we are doing a work without, and keeping ego is aside, or even feeling happy or about it. Because sometimes when a parent thanks you, invites you to the house, and expresses gratitude, great thing. But sometimes it also creates a false sense of ego, because your work itself is your biggest award. And we just want to be grounded and keep our head down and just keep on doing this.
So I'm extremely envious of who are going to be the mentees of Vineet. Vineet had a great mentor in life, but I think there are many who are going to be benefiting by having a mentor as Vineet. Just one last question. I know we have hit our time limit, but I'm very curious to ask this last question. If you had a chance to share the platform with the Prime Minister on Man Ki Baat, and the nation is listening to your voice, what would you like to tell them? Top three things.
Oh, so I'll not like to disclose. Who knows? We might be actually sharing our work with the Prime Minister this month. So let's
Fantastic.
wait for it. When it comes, you'll see it.
There could not have been an answer better than this. So I think there's one definite change that I'm going to personally adopt after this session, that anytime I'm looking for somebody to provide a service, provide a product, I think I should make a conscious effort to check in Atypical Advantage portal and see if there are people with persons with disability who can fill that space. And I would appeal to all the listeners as well that I think change has to begin with each one of us. Having had a wonderful session with Vineet himself, who has been through this journey individually and who has expanded his mission of his definition of success, not limited to himself but to a larger society, and who finds reward in the work itself. This is way beyond it. It is spiritual. It is enlightening. It is spiritual. It is a moment of expansion of heart. I'm sure all the listeners are grateful for having been on the session here, Vineet. I'm very, very happy and very thankful to Lahari for having taken the time to introduce a person such as you personally. And I think Gems of Bharat has had a great start in having you been the very first session. Once again, heartfelt thanks to you, Vineet. I'm sure many listeners are going to benefit as they see this session, as they watch it and share the stories with their friends and family. Uh, Loss of words. I just want to thank you sincerely, and I hope we do our bit and make your story greater and grander.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It was absolutely a joy, as such. So, like, I just want to leave everyone again with just a parting thing. Like, continuously try to work on inner transformation, which is yourself as an individual, and then external impact. That is what even Gandhi advocates for. So typically we as a team always try to balance both of this. Both of this is important. Nothing would work in isolation. some, like for example, Gandhi talks about only inner transformation, like change yourself to change the world. I think that's his most famous quote. But again, we also need to look at the external impact while changing yourself. And I was lucky and blessed that I had two different mentors. One of the mentors only spoke about inner transformation, and there was another mentor who wanted to speak about scale and external impact. And luckily, I was able to get the wisdom from both and reflect some of that piece in the work at Atypical.
Thank you, Vineet. With your permission, I want Lahari, if it's possible, to just share her screen and flash the portals of Atypical Advantage, the key portals, Atypical Academy, the portal where job opportunities, so that the
Yeah, art
viewers,
event stories. Yeah.
yeah, just show the various websites that you have built, the various portals that you have built. You can do it live. Go to the browser and show us, so that we are aware of those links, and we are able to use them and share with others. Is this request possible,
Yeah.
Lahari? Lahari, you're around?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just quickly sharing my screen. Let me know if it's visible. So the first one is the Atypical Academy. This is a completely accessible platform for all people with disabilities. So government recognizes 21 categories. So this is accessible to all of them. uh, and there are courses. It could be whatever, from English to preparing for IIT JEE to MS Office for visually impaired people. UI UX for autistic learners is something that's been so successful. We're looking at the second batch now, so that's one. And second, this is atypicaladvantage.in, where we have people with disabilities can find jobs, can upskill themselves, and understand where they need to get trained. And this is where you can find art. So art is listed on the website itself. If somebody wants to purchase, it could be of any format. They can pick the occasion. They can pick paintings all made by people with disabilities, and they can also ask us, contact us if they need some commissioning, if they want certain different personalized paintings. All of that is also done. We recently gifted something to Adi Godrej as well, and a lot of other pioneers in the industry. So
Yeah, fantastic, Lahari. I think it will be nice if you could just put those two key links in the chat.
Yeah.
Some of them have requested for it.
Yeah. And like another thing which Larry would have, like, we have a newsletter. So anybody who wants to just follow our work, and we have not missed a single newsletter for the past 5 years, 250 editions so far. And that actually talks about the work which we have done in that week itself. So it's not like some outdated sort of a thing. So if people want to just see the work, they can actually scroll and look at our different work of that week, what Atypical Advantage has done. And it has been a regular thing, almost now 35,000 readers, 35% open rate. It's just positive, great stories around the disability sector. Uh, and then we also do a lot of this school engagement workshops, again done all by people with disabilities, as such. And again, like I remember, if you one of the persons who did not have a PAN card, his earnings exceeded the PAN card limit, and the mother was like, that now we need to create a PAN card for him, which they never thought of.
That's a defining moment, right? Wow,
Yes.
fantastic. You're going to break a lot more barriers. I'm so grateful that we had this session, Vineet. We would love to have this chat ongoing for much more time, and maybe we will organize a session where we can even do face-to-face interaction.
Sure.
But for now, defined by the contours of time, we will have to bring this session to a close. Once again, heartfelt thanks to all the participants. Though we were few on the live session, but I'm sure we are not disabled by our count of how many we are. We have our strength to be able to do a lot more. And thanks to Lahari, thanks to all the participants, thanks to Vineet, and Gems of Bharat Friends is off to a great start. We have to radiate the positivity, and like Vineet said, change is both within and without, inner transformation and social good. On this note, we shall bring this session to a close and wish everybody a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.